Just be a moment while we load onto the internet. Wonderful, thank you, and welcome everybody to the Vincent Community Board for 31st of January 2023, our first meeting of the new year, which is always exciting. First of all, I would like to acknowledge a moment's silence for Judy Elliott Ford, who passed away earlier this month. Judy was a member of the Alexandra Community Board for 2 terms from 2001 until 2007. So if we could all just take a moment, please, to acknowledge Judy. Thank you. And I'd also like us to extend our thoughts to our Auckland and Northland and Coromandel counterparts who are currently operating under a state of emergency. There are lots of challenges for families, not least all those Auckland parents who are facing another week at home with their children. Yeah. So our thoughts with them. I'm aware that staff from around the country have headed north to assist where they can, including from this council. So thank you to those team members. Apologies is first up on our agenda, and we do not have any apologies today, which is wonderful. And then we move into our public forum, which is really busy today. Very exciting. Welcome, everybody. And first up, I'd like to welcome Anna Robinson to the table, who's here to speak to us about the Valence Cottage.
Thank you. Good. I really just wanted to come and introduce myself to those who are familiar with me or have met me before. So I'm Anna Robinson. I am a committee member of Valence Cottage Working Group, and I wanted to come and just share a little bit of what we've been up to recently so that you're all fully aware of what is happening in the Valence Cottage space. So previously I was the VCB rep for Valence Cottage and had been asked to stay on, or perhaps I pushed my way in and I am staying on, but I'd also like to welcome Di. Di has got his hand up to become our VCB rep, so thank you, Di, for doing that. So who we are a small voluntary group of committed community members. We have new and existing members. There's some members there that have been there for a very long time, including back to the times when the cottage was resurrected almost from the dead. So we as a group are committed to the preservation and presentation of the cottage and for the future use of the reserve and the cottage, which is for our community. It's a wonderful piece of history, the wee cottage, and it evokes a feeling of and a sense of earlier times. We see that there is a potential as a great resource for educators in our community, so schools, kindies, and so forth. It's an awesome spot for visitors to drop in and visit, and offers a direct connection to some of our gold mining history in South Otago. And there's also opportunity there as a community space as well. The reserve has had a lot of work done to it, and it's a really beautiful spot to drop in and spend some time. There's beautiful trees there to sit under. There's fruit at certain times of the year, and it's just a lovely spot close to the river. Something that we have achieved recently, as you can see in the report, which you've all got, we have Christine put together a really nice update. There is some achievements that we wanted to highlight as well, which come out of that statement of intent and then the project plan. So what has happened in the past is the cottage has really sat as a museum piece. It has only been opened on a few days a year so that visitors can come in and check it out, and that's relied on voluntary time and effort. It's harder for us to find volunteers who are willing to give up that precious time and commit to giving up some of their weekend to do that. So what we decided as a group is that an installation of Perspex panels into the doorways within the cottage, I think there's a photo in here, as well as a door on the front, a lock on the front, which is able to be accessed just by using a pin code, means that the cottage is now available for people to drop in and visit any time between the hours of 9 and 4. While our numbers are still quite modest with people dropping in and visiting, it is showing that it's working, that people are able to indeed go and visit. It's still somewhat of a museum piece, but it still gives people the opportunity to check it out as it's convenient to them. What is part of that, we also realised that we need to increase the profile of the cottage as well. So we've got, as you'll see in the project plans, some quite ambitious goals and activities that we've got lined up, including collating the stories of the cottage, creating a website page, which with collaboration with CODC and the TCO, we hope to have that uploaded. A video which will be introducing the cottage and presentation of the cottage and the reserve, so people really know what it is, where it is, and that they're able to access it as well. So we're pretty stoked about our panels and our doors. We have several different moving parts going on along with the video. We have one of the direct descendants of the cottage is going to speak on the video and present some of those stories around the cottage. And we have some really awesome collaboration and support from the likes of Otago Museum, Central Otago Heritage Trust, yourselves, BCB and Council. So we're really looking forward to the next chunk of work, which is going to be exciting and meaty, but can't be done without you. So really, I'm here to say thank you. We're really stoked and privileged to be able to continue working alongside you, and that we really feel like with support from you and others, we will hold this cottage in good stead for the future.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anna, and thank you for the report.
You're welcome.
And also I note that the cottage is open on the 5th of February.
That's right. Next open day.
You haven't seen it, myself can partake.
And if you're excited, particularly excited about lilacs, we have the person who was involved with the heritage lilacs, which are in the reserve. She will be coming along to have a chat as well for anyone who's interested in that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Anna?
No, just a comment really, just a compliments on just every time, and I drive in and out of Alex quite a bit, so I pass it quite a lot, and just the grounds and how it looks is a testament to the hard work, and I think it looks absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So well done.
And that's well done to council staff, parks and reserves people for doing that. It's looking stunning at the moment. Yes. Good observation.
Was there a comment about a commercial opportunity what's that look like?
Yeah, so that commercial opportunity still sits on the table. I guess, as part of that plan that we have with raising the profile of the cottage and getting some of these parts in place, such as power back to the reserve. Yeah, it's still there and it's still available for people to check out and inquire about. I believe on the website there's a link to for people to put those inquiries through. I guess really what we're doing is all the background work, which I think will help in time for that to be, to look really attractive for someone in that commercial space.
So it's like as a venue for hosting things, or it's a...
I'm not going to say what it will be, but I think it could be any number of options. Yes. Yeah. Bring us your ideas.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you. And congratulations all for being interested.
Thank you. Next up, and probably, apologies to the board members, I did not clarify at the start, but luckily Anna already knew. In the time limit of 5 minutes for speaking, we will have to stick to that quite closely, so please bear that in mind, and if I need to let you know that you've reached the end, you get your 5 minutes, I will do so as graciously. Next up, we have Linda Gray from Central Otago riding for the disabled.
Should we have Wayne speaking first?
Of course, yes. Wayne Harris from the Equestrian Centre. Welcome.
Hi all. So, Wayne Harris, if you don't already know, thanks for the introduction.
I'm here to talk about shit, really. Well, 13 years ago, I was with the Fly Pony Club. We were trying to run an event at the Dunstan Equestrian Centre. We had about 180 people on site, most of them women, and the toilets froze up and would not operate. So from that day forward, I vowed and declared to join DEC, and my mission was to get the new toilets, which clearly I haven't done that well because it's been a very long time, but here we are. So if you don't know who DEC is, we're a registered charity. DEC operates a facility at the Dunstan Recreational Reserve on Dunstan Road, in the racecourse, and we lease that from the CODC. The facility is there for the purpose of fostering equestrian activities in the Vincent area. To that end, DEC offers a well-maintained area for horse riding generally. This maintenance is supported by regular irrigation, a good tractor and mower, many hundreds of volunteer hours, including those of hard-working committee and supervision of the Community Service Workers Program. An outdoor arena which has been fitted with a functioning dust suppression system, which is essential on these hot, dry conditions for health and safety reasons. We have grazing for horses, inclusive of the RDA ponies, giving opportunities for many people to be able to enjoy horse riding. Access to the public toilets, which are CODC owned and DEC maintained. For the general public, for equestrian events, for the Department of Justice Community Service workers that we host, and for community events such as the Lions Club Easter Bunny Shoot, as well as for casual use by walkers, cyclists, and anyone recreating in the park-like conditions of our grounds. Associate membership to the equestrian organisations such as RDA, the Clyde Pony Club, and the Dunstan Adult Riding Club. DEC has worked with RDA to make the transition from its current site as smooth as possible through letters of support, offer of free grazing, supporting RDA's plan to upgrade the jockey rooms as an interim measure, and regular meetings to work throughout the options, provide RDA and members of DEC, the wider equestrian community, with a facility that will take us into the future. So the indoor facility we propose will benefit all users of DEC into the future. This is through replacement and upgrade of some of the buildings, inclusive of the current toilet block and septic tank. Provision of a single building which will contain a meeting room, office, kitchen facilities, changing rooms, storage, and the previously mentioned toilets. Mitigating the effects of climate change by providing cover for heat, rain and snow through the covered arena. A facility which is not provided in the CODC or Lakes District areas currently. This will not only benefit RDA, its clients and volunteers, but allow all-weather equestrian events, horse rider training and teaching clinics. We recently conducted a survey which showed strong support for the facility overall, with multiple suggestions about how this would foster not only RDA, giving it the ability to extend its programs, but equestrian activities and other community activities as well. So how can the council help with this process? The main way the council can help alongside the general support for the project, which through Christina, Paula and Gareth has been excellent so far, is to fund the replacement of the public toilets and septic tank, which the council own and are in poor condition. The new public toilets would be incorporated into the new building with public access. 2 PAM toilets from which would be accessible. With the establishment of these signed new toilets, there will be accessible public toilets for all users of DEC, including all riders, both at events and as individuals, RDA clients and volunteers, walkers, cyclists, people having picnics in the grounds, and other community groups running events at DEC. We really appreciate support from the council for the replacement of these toilets.
Thank you, Wayne. Excellent timing. Does anybody have any questions for Wayne? Thank you, Linda.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. This is a crap talk. Anyway, I want to just reiterate a bit about RDA and why it is important that we have fit for purpose services and facilities. So yeah, a little bit about our group. I'm Linda Gray and I'm the president of our local group. I'm also an assistant coach there. And this term, which will kick off on Thursday, we'll have 18 to 20 riders signed up for weekly Thursday sessions. Our riders are mostly primary age children, but they do range from preschoolers to adults. Now, we are a small and volunteer-run group, but we have a very rigid training program, and obviously we have to adhere to pretty strict health and safety regulations. We are one of 50 branches, and we're allied to the New Zealand Riding and Disabled group. And the next closest provider is in Waka, and they have a similar sized group as what we do. So how does RDA work? What happens is that our riders are referred either by their parents, a health professional or a teacher. And after a little discussion and form filling, we come up with an equine based program to support that rider in their learning or perhaps some medium long-term life goals. So yeah, well, that's all well and good, but what is the value of the service that we provide, and really why is it important that our community supports what we do? So if you come along to one of our sessions, and I know that the Mayor has been along, and the smiles and the small breakthroughs that we see every week as volunteers or as the caregivers or support people, they're the feel-good returns. But recently NZRDA commissioned research to actually quantify some of the payback or the returns. And this research estimated that for every dollar invested in an RDA program, there was a return of $3.20 of measurable good to each individual rider that took part. The programs contributed positively to the mental and physical health and academic achievements of many riders. So since the council directed back in 2019 of an arranged marriage, if you like, what's debt, and it's unduly harsh, it's gone pretty well actually. There have been a lot of learnings, and it set us on quite a journey of twists and turns, but I think for that we're in a better space and the wider community ultimately could benefit from the development that we are proposing at DEC. We now have in place a high level and sustainable plan for an indoor facility that will meet the needs of our riders and the demand for what we hope will be a year-round service. We also believe that, we also believe that centralising equine facilities and groups should ultimately be a benefit to all equine players through the more efficient use of resources and people. It will also be the only indoor equestrian facility within Central Otago, so it should have wide appeal and be a draw card for many groups and events. And we also believe, and are sure that a feasibility study is going to back this, that the indoor facility will be used and accessed by groups beyond the equestrian facility. I'm thinking of groups such as dog agility, training groups, indoor markets. I know the one near Balclutha is used for that, and a range of special events, and the Easter Bunny shoot is one that springs to mind. Beyond the actual indoor arena, we're hoping that the associated development, which will include amenity plantings, seatings and a few picnic tables, will create an easily accessible green space. It'll be right off the rail trail there, so it will be accessible, and we hope it'll be one that general public can use. We feel that we've made excellent progress in transitioning our service to DEC. We've re-roofed and are in the throes of decking out a building at DEC so we can operate there from term 4. We want to keep moving forward in a manageable way, which is it's always a balancing act when you've got a handful of volunteers. anyway, we believe that your support and principle for this development will give us the added confidence and the momentum to move forward. So we hope you do support this, and we would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Linda. Does anybody have any questions for?
Just if members wanted to go up, I'd really encourage it. It's a marvellous thing to watch. And what time on Thursday?
We 9 till about 1 o'clock, or 9 to 1 days for the time to come along on Thursdays.
Just come on.
Yeah, oh, if you give us a bit of a, it's better to do that, that would be great, but yeah, we'd welcome you. Yep.
Linda, is it all year round or is it?
No, we operate in school terms 1 and 4, if it just gets too cold in the winter, yeah.
So this facility, the long-term proposal?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping, it'll fill that gap, yeah.
Can I ask, I mean, this might be going far too much into the detail at a very early stage, but why the rubber sand mix as opposed to just a high quality silicon?
It's to do with, well, you might like to, yeah. But
There's been a lot of investigation
Yeah.
into the suitability of the surface and also the health and safety effects of the silica. So we've actually got a report done on that, and the rubber chip is at least effective on the horse and the rider.
And volunteers, when you've got to stand there for the most of the morning.
I wonder, Linda, it is a wonderful program and the benefits are very well documented. Would the ability to operate in terms 2 and 3 allow you to expand the program? Do you have kids or adults in your waiting list?
Yes, we do, yeah. Yeah, we're restricted by, we're restricted in terms of volunteer help, but that's been an ongoing problem since RDA started. So yeah, that would, we believe, help greatly. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just one question, sorry.
Yeah.
So you talked a bit about expanding the versatility of the facility. Yeah. Is that going to be revenue and make it sustainable in terms of running?
Yeah, we didn't cover that up. Yeah.
So it is our aim to make it self-sustaining in terms of rental and fees for the use of the facility. Yeah. We believe we can do that. Obviously, there's a lot of detail through our share.
Thank you. Good luck for Thursday. Thank you. Next up, we have Phil Murray from the Secretariat Wildlife Control Group. Listen to him.
Yes, thanks. So I'm just here to give you a bit of an insight into what we're up to, and for those who haven't been on the council for long, just tell you where we've come from, so I get a bit of a hot topic at the moment for the board. Our background is that we came out of community concern about wilding pines that varied from farmers around Naseby Forest fighting for their survival, really, bit of a lonely fight, and people, farmers who were tuned into the wilding pine issue, being aware of the threat that wilding pines pose to water, and also people around in the community here, a lot of analysts looking out and seeing the change of wilding pines spreading over the landscape and their concern. So we were established under the instigation of the council. We have an executive that represents the community. So what we did we've been going for about 7 years now, and we got funds, we scrabbled around and got funds from lotteries, Central Lakes Trust, Transpower, anywhere we could get it. And and then that was supported by the national program, which came in 2016, I think. We've been going for years by then, and that gave us a big boost. And so what we've done to date is to get the coning trees out of the big landscapes. And we still have their seedlings to deal with, but we have got the seeding trees out of those high landscapes. So what we're left with basically the seed sources. And those are towns, plantations, shelter belts, and non-participating landowners. So that's very much a hearts and minds challenge. So the big challenge to deal with Whiting Pines is hearts and minds, convincing people. So that requires people to be informed about the issue. But for them to be informed about the issue, they need to want to seek that information, and that can happen by any number of means, and one of them is to seeing adverse effects on the landscape.
Would you like to? That might be a really good intro to your video if you want to put that on.
But by that time it's too late. Another way is by seeing positive changes in the landscape, and they might be initially perceived as positive, but that sets off a debate which people seek information. And then the other part is to provide information, and so we can play it. So we're investing in providing information around that debate that we'll be having.
Oh, thank you.
So we can play this video.
In fact, the natural landscape in Central Otago is by totally dominated the ecosystem. They out-competed our neighbours by being high stature and out-competing them for light and out-competing them for moisture. Central Otago Wilding Conifer Group assists landowners with controlling wildings on their properties by providing contractors and coordinating a control program over the whole district. Here's the road between Clyde and Cromwell. If we hadn't got those trees there, wilding conifers would be a hot topic in Central, because people would be looking out at their cars and the landscape would be transforming in front of their faces from a bare classical Central Otago landscape into one that's dotted with wildings. It has quite a different look and texture, and it would infill quite fast. We're in the Cambrian Valley here. 20 years ago, there were one or two trees to be seen out here. Now, for every one tree that you see anywhere in our landscape, in 10 years' time, there'll be 1,000 trees. What's going on here will go on elsewhere in our landscape unless we do something to stop it.
The Central Otago area is known for its dry landscape, and one of the biggest challenges for us is fire staying dry environment. Typically will move and start quickly, move quickly. Makes it very hard for us to manage them. The work the group do is really important from our point of view because it is reducing a significant fuel load for it.
The threat of wildings to the natural landscape here in Central is a frightening one because it's happening so quickly. The transformational threat, it's changing, it threatens to change the landscape to an evergreen exotic forest. I think the pines are a distinct risk to the economics of tourism in Central, because people come here expecting Central to be golden and rocky and schisty and tussocky. It's hard to think of anywhere else quite like this. They want Central to be different. They're going to be terribly disappointed if it's not different. And we have to preserve that distinction, that separateness. We have to keep going. It has to be well funded, and it has to be funded into the future if we're going to eliminate these unwanted visitors, these colonists of our landscape.
So the cost of inaction is in the billions. It has huge implications for hydro, agricultural industries and irrigation water, and in our tourist industry. We don't do something about it quickly. It'll be colossal amounts of money.
and possibly our kids will be teaching us that if we don't do it, something about it now, by the time they inherit this landscape, the problem will be attracted. So the onus is on us to do it now and not to pass on to them an impossible problem.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Phil? Yeah.
Just had one question, which was for ratepayers that are asking around that we're talking about cutting pine trees down, yet our counterpart in the Tibet Valley recently approved pine trees. What would you say is the key difference between what's happened in the Tibet Valley versus here?
Like you mean with the planting of the trees?
Yeah.
And the valley. Well, my view, yeah, we've got lots of ways we can choose to deal with the climate change, and we can't sequester our way out. So to think we can is kind of a false hope. So it's going to be one of the components, but Central Otago just simply isn't an appropriate place to sequester carbon for permanent forests because of the vulnerability to invasion by wildlings, because of your extensive marginal land. We're about 70% of the district here is vulnerable to invasion by conifers, and we've got high winds. So it's just simply not an appropriate landscape to sequester forests. That's our big difference.
And then one of the other questions that came up was the trees that are up on the half mile there, the opposite face on the other side of the river. What will happen with those trees that are over there?
Yeah, well, that is one of the category of non-participating landowners, and it's a serious problem. If we don't get that person on board, we're going to have a really serious problem. That will become intractable. It's gone since I've been here. It's gone. The figures have just rocketed up on the estimation of cost. I estimated about 5 years ago we could have done that for 30k. We'd be getting up near the 100k to get on top of that now. It's a pastoral lease, but at the moment and that could be a legal avenue, but at the moment there isn't a legal framework under the regional pest management plan to deal with that.
So, Phil, what you're saying is we've got a problem over there with our hills, and our landscape is slowly turning into Tongariro National Park, and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, well, we can do something about it. There's the legal avenue may be limited. The regulatory side may be limited, but the council can do something by setting a good example, because one of the first retorts I got when I dealt with that is that there was no point because the trees were coming from council land, and they had it until the council sets a good example. They have a point. So the council setting a good example is one component in how we might get there with that problem.
How can we, as council, support you guys in dealing and having that conversation with those people who have the lease on that land? Because, as you know, in the last 10 years, as you rightly say, that landscape has altered significantly, and before long we will be surrounded by green hills.
Yeah, which has
how can, apart from the issue we're going to debate later on this afternoon, how can this council help you engage with those landowners?
By setting a good example on its own land. That's number one, and the policy, I applaud you for your parks policy. That's been a great step, but that would be number one, is setting a good example, which is because you're not you don't have authority under the regional pest management plan, that's about all you can do. Set a good example in your own land. And to help us and play a part in engaging with the public and having a conversation and setting a really good, a positive example in how we might transition these landscapes to some positive amenity. And that's going to be critical, because this is going to be associated, this transition from that landscape up there with the pines, which provides amenity, to another landscape that provides amenity is going to be critical. And to give people confidence in making that transition is absolutely critical. And that's the part that the council plays, is to make a really good job of that transition.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Next up, we have Ken Churchill, Chris Winter, Ingrid Miller. Would you like to come to the table together, or would you prefer to be separate?
Separate, we don't mind going separate, I sort of bit of Italian in there, tend to talk in hands. Dodgy.
We don't want you to accidentally collect Chris in the face.
And I'm hard of hearing, so.
Welcome, Ken. You have 5 minutes with us, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Kia ora, Madam Chair, community board members. I'm here to speak for the trees and the community, but particularly the Bridge Hill residents. I appreciate that it will require a monumental strength of character and backbone to not adopt the council recommendation to clear fell, especially given that the mayor has vehemently wanted the trees gone. And also, in my opinion only, the chair has a bias given her appointment to the CWG. So a predetermination appears to exist, but hopefully I'm proven wrong. Grover Hill in Roxburgh was a typical example of a board agreeing with council recommendation to replant in pines when an option existed to replant in natives. That is important. There's a simple democratic method possibly right here, I don't know. One of the members, perhaps a board member, could move an amendment which would allow a vote first to allow a staged removal to take place of the trees up there. It's just simply vote on it ahead of the clear fell proposal on the agenda, which in my opinion should be last up anyway. The majority of residents of Bridge Hill want either a stay of clear fell or at minimum a staged transition. The latest report from Chris Winter, which demonstrated a great compromise, has been totally overlooked. The June survey, which had a very biased leading question in it, has thrown up a tainted result. It took till late yesterday morning for the council staff to release the full results from way back in June. Only then, after a long protracted exercise involving the Ombudsman's office. Due to council hiding behind a very thin veil of privacy on behalf of the respondents. All that did was create an atmosphere of mistrust and of hiding something. But the Ombudsman's office was clearly able to dismiss that misguided veil. It's also noteworthy in the report that's before you today that after 40 and 50 years, there's all of a sudden an electrical hazard identified as the power corridor up there, and it's never even mentioned 16 months ago when this whole debacle started. The trees have been maintained as recently as 2 years ago, power-wise, so there's no need to do it again for quite some time. It seems also to me there's no dedicated budget for the redevelopment, just a mishmash of pockets of funding from different accounts. And they've even mentioned the Ice Inline's possible grant as a source of funds. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul stuff. Other parks and reserves will miss out because of this. Aranui Dam's a classic example. The Raupo there have now tripled since the 2014 repatriation project. Excuse me. And that's just one reserve. Given it's the entrance to the town, the community need a definitive guarantee that the reserve will be left totally tidy and acceptable to us, the ratepayers, after any logging. The CWG's track record around Central is abysmal for cleaning up. Their standard is only that of commercial forestry blocks at best. Carwell Arm, Sugarloaf, Brewery Creek, to mention but a few. What a mess. Come what may, as close neighbours, we will keep a microscopic eye on all of the outcomes going forward. The irony in all of this, almost comedic, is that once the trees have gone, and the briar and the broom and the lupins and the old man beard take hold amongst the slash, the genuine wilding pines will still be in view over State Highway 8 and over the river all the way to the skyline. Already, there's wilding pines popping up around the poison trees on the Sanders place. And the funny part about it, our northern entrance to town will still be sporting a shady amenity of pine trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Ah, spot on. You must have been practicing. I've just heard Wayne's feet going.
I thought I'd do that because previous chairman was quite sharp on the clock.
Does anybody have any questions for Ken? Wonderful, thank you. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. Your Worship, the Mayor, Madam Chair, the councillors, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Chris Winter and I live with my family up on Bridge Hill. We've lived in Alex for 16 years now. So I'm here today as a representative of the Bridge Hill community to discuss the Half Mile Reserve and the trees within it. Many of you will be aware of the time and the resources that both Ken and I have put into giving a balanced view to the council. We don't feel like there's been many other people sort of trying to give a view on what's been happening out there. These trees were planted for the purpose of shelter and shade and to beautify the town. Majority of the trees were planted by community groups, school children, neighbours to the reserve, and they should not be considered wilding pines. Really, the council has continued to call the plantation of trees wilding, but they should be no more considered wilding than the COD funded plantation that is happening up at Grove Hill. It seems ironic to me that on one hand you're planting pines in one area and you're removing the same or similar type of tree from another. I could go on about the history of the reserve and where the trees came from, the minimal effects they're having on the neighbours at the moment. But I don't have time and you sure probably don't want to listen to it anyway. So I'm sure you've all read my report, have you seen it, which I've published that a few times. My main concern was for the community and the reserve that is cherished and loved by so many out there. After reading the comments from the community survey, which were released to us yesterday after 7 months of waiting and investigation from the Ombudsman's office, it has become clear to me that the people up on Bridge Hill are deeply concerned with the clear felling of the reserve. Many people from outside of the Alexandra area that do not use the reserve or have never even visited the site are more than happy for the trees to be removed. And this has skewed the results. These people have never been to that site, they don't understand the site, they don't understand the topography of the site. And so they make a judgment call based on wilding pines, which were planted there in the first place for a reason. So it's not a true representation. Those results you have in your report are not a true representation of our community, and I feel that they have been skewed. So please listen to your local community and that the use of this reserve and those who use it on a weekly and monthly basis or daily basis. Okay. We understand that there is a potential risk of the tree spreading. We're not silly. We understand that the trees will need to be removed at some point. And I'm glad that Phil mentioned that there was to be a the way that the council deals with it is the key to this whole argument. The majority of the respondents who took out the survey were comfortable with the staged removal of the trees. And we're arguing the same thing. We're not saying that the trees need to remain. We never have been. We're saying that we want it to be done in a sensible manner that fits with the community and that the community still doesn't lose their amenity value of the trees at the moment, and that the trees, the best outcome for everyone. That's what we feel. It gives the council time for planning, to secure funding, for replanting, for setting up irrigation, and it gives us the ability to be able to establish plantings while keeping some of the trees and then removing the final thing. Ken and I met with the Wilding Pines group and the council just in December, and we sat across the table from each other and agreed that we weren't saying anything different. We both want the same thing. Even the council were there as well. And so it astounds me that the main recommendation in that report that you've got now is still for a clear valley. It has not been listened to. And we both agreed at that table in principle what the best option was. You heard Phil yourself say the same thing. So it's not the best interest for a clear fell. We would be losing a great amenity in our community if those trees were to be cut down in one fell sweep. We would appreciate if the trees were kept, some of the trees were kept, replanted, and the stage removal was done. I understand that it's probably the more costly option, but given time, we can stage that over the thing. Right. Also, the trees are a major part of our local bird life and ecology up there as well. And we've had Alan Parker and some people from the local bird experts talking about that reserve as a corridor into our town for birds to follow. And that really has been not even mentioned in the report that you've got in front of you. So it's a sensitive issue. We understand that. It's been going on for like 16, 17 months. It's a long time for something like this to be going on. But the communication between the council and the community has not been great. So we want to make sure that the community is heard and that people are listening to them. Okay. We hope that this is the council and the VCB, you don't use a figurative bulldozer or a literal one, please. We hope that you're able to hear the community's concerns and act on behalf of the people that you represent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Did anybody have any questions?
Very good.
Comments?
No, wonderful, thank you.
Very good.
Ingrid Mullen, welcome.
Right. My name is Ingrid Müller. I live on the Old Gold Coast Road. 12 years ago, I came here and settled, and I loved it. I loved the trees. I loved the views. Right, now I suddenly am confronted that somebody wants to take our trees away and just clear fell it. And to me, it is just, it's a shame. I'm not against felling these wilding pines. I had the Wilding Pine Society coming to my place because I have got a gully which 20 or 25 wilding pines were growing up. So I have been in consideration of having them cut down or just selected felling. And in the end, I decided, okay, Eamon Saunders was there with his crew, and we cut down all the trees. And I come from the North Island. I lived for years and years. We had a lifestyle block in Warkworth. So I know a bit about bush trees and so on. We had cattle. Right. So I thought, okay, I can walk when the trees are there. I can walk through that valley, no problem. Now the trees are gone. And what do I have? Rubbish, weeds, hemlock, these yellow flowers which look like foxgloves, everything, briar. And it is just a year ago. So my concern is, if there is clear felling over there, that will happen to that beautiful amenity we on the Old Golf Course have. Right, now that is a preliminary. I concur with Chris. We are not against felling selective trees. We just want to make sure that we are not confronted with a Tolaga Bay situation where slash and stumps and everything is left for us, because we collect the pine cones for our fires. We have got dogs, we walk the dogs. Now, what a beautiful show it was that Christine and Neville Ridd did over the Christmas. And I would like to ask you, none of them live at the old golf course road. So I have got a feeling you have got no right to take our trees away. That is my intention of making you aware. Go over there. Go and drive over the golf course road. Look to the left side. It looked like a beautiful area. The houses on the left side are all covered by trees in the background. That log house, which is down there, what does it look like when you take the trees away? Okay, so that is just my preliminary. I have a few questions for you. After the clear felling of these trees, what will the entrance to Alex look like when you come from Roxborough? Shocking, because I don't think you will clean up. Number two, with the strong winds which come from the Roxborough area and the noise on the road, because that road is very rough tarmac, we can hear the noise of the traffic. Even on my side, I live on the other side, I can hear that noise. That will be terrible. The dust. Who is actually collecting the dust which goes and blows over us? Nobody will know anything about it because you don't live there, but we will experience that. Right. Number three. And there is a lot of wind coming from that side. I know that all the houses being built on that road have got a wind loading. That wind loading will increase. So if there is damage to the outside on the walls of the houses and the windows, that is an insurance claim. Who is paying that? We. So wind loading fund is there. What happens to the redevelopment you promised me and us on the last meeting? That you have got benches there and water features and children's playground. Who is paying for that? Have you got, I haven't seen a budget. Answer? No. And how many years do we have to wait for, and say, if you replace it with a native tree, how many years do we have to wait for a shady tree in the summertime to walk through? In Warkworth, I know 10 years. Here, it may be 20 or even. There are tree plantings there 5 years ago of native trees, and they are just here. 5 years.
Thank you, Ingrid.
I'm not finished yet.
Yep, that's your 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes.
And thank you for your questions. Those will be discussed at the agenda item when we talk about the trees. Well done. Thank you very much, Ingrid. Now, that is the end of our public forum. It is wonderful to hear from so many people. Now we move to the confirmation of the minutes on page 7. Those are the minutes from the 22nd of November meeting. Can I have someone to move that those are accurate? Thank you very much, Roger. Seconded, Tracy. Thank you. Through the declarations of interest on page 12, just a reminder, if any of those have changed for you or your significant other, please let Wayne know. And we now move to item number 23.1.2, the Half Mile Recreation Reserve Development Plan Survey. It is being brought to us today by Audie. And that is wonderful.
Right.
Good.
Thank you. So just a little bit of a briefing on the report. So in March 2022, the board considered a report on the removal of conifers from the half-mile reserve. That report was left lying on the table until community feedback was received on the proposed redevelopment plan for the reserve. In July 2022, the board received an information report summarising the results from the survey. Today's report provides the board the opportunity to formally consider the survey results. The report also outlines the background of why it is necessary to remove the trees from the site. That being, it is an identified seed take-off site. The trees are a classified pest under the Regional Council's pest plan as well. The report also outlines where wilding pines sit in the national context, including the government commitment of $100 million over 4 years to assist in control of pines as a plant pest. Additionally, the half-mile site has a number of Aurora electricity lines that could be impacted by trees if they fell. Council, as a landowner, has a responsibility to mitigate this from happening. In July 2022, Council adopted its own wild and conifer control policy, and the site has a great potential to be redeveloped into a natural central Otago landscape, with the opportunities to engage with industry groups to develop this further. So on the basis of all this, all these different aspects, and not just the survey, the report's recommendation is to remove the trees and redevelop the site. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gordy. Now, what I would like us to do for this one is we'll do any questions for Gordy first, and then following on from that, any discussion. So does anybody have questions for Gordy and or David?
Yeah, you seem to have discarded the staged approach to the removal of the pines. I'd like to see that back on the table. Can we discuss the implications of that?
So the staged approach is here, option 3.
Yes, but you didn't use, you talking in terms purely of clear felling rather than of staging.
Right, yes, so there's several reasons for that. One, which are outlined in the report. One is there's additional cost for doing that, as pointed out. There's the strict cost for that. The cost will not be covered by the government subsidy. There'll be a longer term implementation of that any staging, and the staging might impact on stuff that have already redeveloped in the reserve.
Could I add to that? Sorry, just to add to Gordy's response, you could also expect significant spread of the trees over the period it will take to do it in a staged manner.
And just the other thing there is the allocation of the government funding, as far as we're aware, is up to this financial year as well. So that's been obviously taken into the consideration of that recommendation to the sort of those 5 key factors.
An advantage that I see in having it staged is that the remaining trees will provide some wind protection for the new plantings. If you completely clear fell that, then putting native plants especially on that land will be far more challenging, and they will grow far more slowly than if they've got some wind protection. I can't see any coverage of that factor in your report.
We might cover that in the discussion, Roger, if that's okay, Jordan, around specific questions relating to the report. Are there any more of those before we move on to the discussion aspect? There is, I wonder, Gordy, obviously option 1 is the recommended option. Option 3, that the Vincent Community Board agrees to the staging of the removal. In terms of cost implications for that, what budgets have been done? Are we looking at the page 30, or is it?
For the staging,
Yeah,
so there's going to be, anyway, whatever, at the staging, there'll be fixed costs for establishment and traffic management of about 13K
yeah,
a year anyway. There'll be potential, and it's hard to quantify, loss of, I guess, for want of a better word, profit from the logging, because we're going to leave so much logs there. So the cost of the logging will increase and the cost of the return will increase because there's not the quantity of logs need to be trucked away as well. So there's those sort of fixed costs up front. So other detailed costs I haven't got, but they're the ones that I can determine. But because no one's we haven't quite determined what staging actually is, so we can't put a price on that. And staging leaving I guess a buffer along the boundaries of property, and if that's so, then we're okay with that.
And I'm just adding that the second piece around government funding as well. So obviously, if you go for the staged option, there isn't the subsidy that comes with well, potentially there will be less or no funding available from, I guess, the national government point of view going into the future. So we just have to take that into consideration as well.
Is that government funding based on the start of the project or the completing the project? Because if you start a staged project, can you not commit some for the next 12 months?
No, so there's 4 years of funding. So there's one more year after this. The local, and it's managed through the regional council, who then push that through the Wildland Conflict Control Group locally. So they've got a program of street work, and that's all funded. So our only opportunity for that this year is only opportunity for funding from that group. Yeah, the government subsidy is this financial year, so up to the 30th of June. And after that, we would have to be on it.
Allocate for work undertaken if needed.
Yeah, there's only undertaken for this year, so their program.
Tracy.
Yeah, Gordy, can you just, in relation to the staged, however that excluding detail, how does that go? Doesn't that contravene the policy?
Yes, you've still got wilding, you've still got a seed source spreading seed across what we've taken trees out from, and also across to properties potentially.
Any additional questions for Gordon? I think it might be helpful if we hear from everybody at the table, their thoughts on the options before us. Roger, I wondered if you would like to kick us off there. And I also wondered, Wayne, if perhaps you could put up on the screen that picture on page 51 that shows the aerial view of the reserve, including the boundaries and the power lines.
Mm.
Thank you, Roger.
I have had considerable experience of planting out challenging sites and getting wind protection. Getting water is critical. Getting wind protection is next to the water is also critical. So to complete the cleared fallow is a strategy that I think is fundamentally a poor one. And I think the staging approach by ensuring that there is a break to the ability of wind to simply sweep across the rock is a more secure way of getting things established. What was her name? Ingrid mentioned the long time it took neighbours to get planted, to get high enough to provide shade. And I can confirm from our place, which is just the other side from the half mile, it's across the other side of that ridge, that so very similar sort of conditions, but after 10, 15 years, they were barely able to provide shade. So there's a whole generation of people who could otherwise have enjoyed that environment who are not going to be able to enjoy it because we've removed that shade if the thing is done in total. So I think doing it by staging is a compromise position, and I agree that you lose out on some of the funding, but that's the cost of providing this additional amenity for our community.
Thank you, Roger. Guy?
Okay, I'm actually a Bridge Hill resident. In Ingrid, I took my grandchildren up to the Ridge Christmas walk many times, which was great. I also managed the Alexandra Golf Club, and I know a lot about the root structures of pine trees. And I looked at some of the big old ones up there and wondered, like, we're built on sand down at the golf course, obviously. We lost 37 trees in October, and they fell over, and I know, I'm not sure how they grow up there in the rock and a bit some dirt, I guess. So I have a little bit of concern about the safety factor. I don't know, Chris, I should have asked you maybe, I'm a newbie on the VCB, so I haven't read the last 17 months about what's been going on. Right. But has there been a safety factor looked into, or about the planting?
Falling trees.
Yeah.
Well, I've been here 16 years and I've noticed all of maybe a branch a year or maybe a tree fall over once a year.
So, because we talk about it as a wind block, we get a nor'wester or even a southerly, and I'll guarantee we'll lose a pine tree on our course. So
yes,
I do have a concern about even just driving up the half mile, looking at the ones on the edge there. You know, if something did fall down, but that's there because how old are the tree?
Planted by Dick Shawman and others in the family that had the orchard there. Yeah. In the late 50s, 60s, and also kids that live for Arthur as well.
So,
Di, do you want to just, if you've got questions, they just have to be directed to you.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. But apart from that, I'm probably leaning a wee bit towards maybe the staging. I think some of the older, and there's got to be a lot of dead wood up at the top of some of those trees, and to me would be quite dangerous.
Thank you very much, Di. Marty?
My first concern is over the budget matters, because I think there's an assumption being made that we're going to get a return from log prices when basically that wood is only really good for one thing and one thing only, that'll be firewood, and that's not going to be a huge income source.
No.
I'm disappointed that we haven't, when the master plan was first developed, there was budgets around that $750,000 for quite comprehensive landscaping. And that seems to be put across to one side, and what's being proposed in this report is fairly light on detailed information. It mentions X number of trees at a certain price. There's no provisions for water to irrigate them, and we all know that if we don't have irrigation up there, whatever we plant is going to die. I don't wish to see that block clear felled. I think we can do some more work as a community board and as residents with staff to come up with a compromise where we have enhanced the amenity values that reserve has. We protect the current residents up there from the issues of noise and wind, and we work together as a community to resolve the issue of the potential of that being a seed source for future wilding pines and creating an amenity. And I don't think clear felling is going to be the answer, because I don't see anything in this report which tells me what we're going to be doing next. And if it's a case of money, well, we can find the money. We find the money for everything else we wish to do. It's just having the heart to do it. Yeah.
Thank you, Maddie. Tracy?
I have heard what our public have said, and especially in relation to the mess that is left behind by commercial logging. I appreciate that. However, I am in favour of completely clear felling on the basis that the council gives a complete surety that it is going to have an approach that's going to be able to make sure that all the new plantings and the water, like Martin said, and all that is done. My concern is we've got a policy, it's not going to be followed. The other thing is, if we, as a council, as the owner of the land, are going to basically do a staged approach, then we're setting a precedent, and we have to follow that precedent for everybody else. And I'm not sure that's being a responsible landowner, so that's.
Okay, I guess I'm a little bit outcome oriented, and I probably like the comment, Chris, we all agree on what the outcome needs to look like. I don't see clear felling is going to be helpful to achieve that outcome in terms of the establishment of natives. I think in terms of some of the disadvantages there, a number of those adjustment management properly, and that's a really what you've elected at the standard of management and overseeing those results. I think we are setting a good example with a staged approach. It's common sense and achieves the outcome. So I'm truly in favour of staged approach.
Yeah. Well, listening to your concerns, and I am with Tracy on this one, that with the guarantee that it was cleaned up afterwards, at the end of the day, responsible landowner, when you're looking at the fact that this is going to become a big environmental problem in our future, 2053 is a very long time away. By then, we could have the hill completely covered. So from the environmental standpoint, I think we need to clear foul, and also council has policy and we need to follow that.
Thank you, Jim. I think that there could be a middle ground to be found here. I think that a staged approach might be the most appropriate outcome for that area, but recognising that a 40-year staged approach is not a proactive solution for wildland times, and it's just not a achievable timeframe in terms of controlling that and controlling the spread. I would like to see us make the most of the government funding that is available now, that will unlikely be available at the end of this year. I'm looking at the budget, and I share Marty's concerns with how much things are going to cost, but also recognising that we've made a commitment to ratepayers to provide enjoyable spaces for them in our parks and reserves. I don't know that the concept master plan budget that includes lawns, playgrounds and park furniture is going to be achievable up there. If you want a nice green lawn, you need to go and visit Di at the golf course. But I think that a large portion of our community has made it really clear that the space and the trees and the amenity value, perceived or not, are really important to the people in that area. And I believe that there is an outcome that we could reach that ensures that every party involved, while not 100% happy, perhaps it's a compromise that they can live with. So, and looking at the recommendations on page 26, thank you, Cynthia. And we first have someone to receive the report and accept the level of significance. Thank you, Tracy, and seconded. Thank you. So,
could I just make 2 points? One is that those trees that have been deemed health and safety risks are required to be removed. That is an operational decision, not a governance one. For the health and safety of the public, as we've been advised by not our contractor, the utility company Aurora. And the second thing is, as you consider your recommendations, I think if we end up with the staged approach, that should be a recommendation to council, given the policy, and it is a consider in light of that.
In looking at the policy and the expectation that we will manage and eradicate trees on our land, is it a conflict with the policy to not do them all at once? Because I look at the other areas of land that we have that have significant amounts of pine trees on them, within the areas where it probably wouldn't be achievable to do them all at once anyway.
I think the approach that the council has taken at this stage is looking at each site progressively. Through communications we've had with the Wild and Conifer group, they've identified Half Mile as the first site that we should, a priority site. There are other sites that have been identified after that, including the airport, Boot Hill, etc. I don't think we have the information now that any of those could have been found in one go. or how they should be approached. Each one would be done in consultation with the board of the group.
Did you want to make a comment on this?
Probably not. I appreciate the opportunity, Tamer. I appreciate that this is a very difficult decision for the board, particularly for a new board coming in, for members that haven't had background. Council does have a policy. I'm, having looked at it, unclear on whether a staged approach would breach that policy or not. Not have to take advice on that from staff, because if it did, then it would come to council. And so the decision would be made further away from Vincent, Cromwell people and Roxburgh people, Maniotato people potentially making that decision, which is not ideal. But that decision would have to be taken in the context of what the board felt as well. So it's starting to get into a bit of crystal ball gazing. The policy, as I recall, says that the council will be proactive in the eradication of wild and pines. The lawyer, he goes, gosh, is a stage approach proactive? Is it reactive? But having said I wasn't going to say anything, I said something, but I'll leave it there.
Well, I wonder if you or David would like to comment on what a staged approach would look like if it was, say, half and half, and the first half included those trees that have been identified as safety hazard by the Lions Company.
Might start here. So from a safety point of view, right will be to have a good review in the December period and really understand what was up there and try and get a full 360 around what was happening at the half mile. And so as part of that, there was a safety review done around our electrical lines by Aurora, who's the power company, and the recommendation came back with these 43 trees or 45 trees that are up along that power line. Now those run perfectly sort of up through where we've got our thing up there.
Where have we got that?
Yeah,
the electricity line, just
great, thank you. So they run sort of right through the middle of the trees. Here we go. So can you see that? Okay. Yeah. So the red line is the power lines that run through the reserve and then down into neighbouring properties. Now the trees within the two black lines, there is a number of those within there that are deemed to be either dying or will die within the next period of time, where they could become ill risk or are currently at risk. So that becomes an operational matter for the council and something we have to obviously be on top of. And usually things like this would come to us and we will take care of them as proactively as possible. So to consider that, and if you see where the trees are, we're looking at the bird's eye view of it now, the staged approach that was given by the public sort of starts from the start of the road and goes back towards where the power lines are. So if you consider that the trees that are in the middle, essentially we need to be taken care of. The trees that are at the front from a staged approach have been a suggestion for us to take out earlier, and I think for us to capitalise the funding that we have from the government to obviously alleviate that expense that could end up further down the road that is unfunded. This would potentially be one option that would take care of the trees that are not safe, but also remove the pines that are closest to the road on the front part of those boundaries as well. So obviously this is not our recommendation because it comes with cost implications and everything else with it. The second thing that we have to consider here is that as there has been a proposal of the development of the land, is we have to be really conscious of, as that does develop, and Roger, I take your point around the shelter for the trees and making sure that they, are protected from the wind as much as possible in the irrigation piece. We've also got to be conscious of if we do stage the trees and the removal of these trees, that when we do have machinery going there, be it in years ahead, we do run a risk of whatever has been developed there with new natives, new trees, the irrigation has gone through as well. So,
but I take it you would need to be leaving an access way the whole way through anyway for the lines companies to service those ones.
that's correct.
So,
yeah,
and that's not their exclusive use of access ways.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah.
The trees on the top side, on the other side of the top side of the power lines, looking at that map, are they at a higher or a lower elevation in terms of wind spread from the ones on the roadside? Do you recall?
So the way I've done it all up here, so the way that the mount works from the road, it goes up fairly steeply. So you can see sort of down at the middle part of the photo there is that sort of gravelly bit is where the car park sort of thing is. Wouldn't recommend people park there. It's fairly unsafe to come out and try and join the traffic there. But essentially there's a gravelly car park there that goes up quite steeply. It goes up to the top of a mountain and then it sort of drops over a ridge and down towards where the residents' houses. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem I've got currently with the report in front of us is that there's no, we went through that comprehensive plan with the landscape plan, that master plan, which was to create an amenity landscape, which had a budget of around $750,000 attached to it. And obviously it's not doable with those sort of costs. With a staged approach, I think we need some more of a plan around it and some budget constraints, because again, we've no point planting new stuff if we haven't got water, and I don't see anything in that report which is telling me clearly what sort of costs are involved as far as irrigation and things like that are concerned. And I know this has been going on for a long time, but I don't want to see it. I want to see us make the best possible decision for all parties, including the Wild and Conifer group and the residents, and the creation of an amenity at entrance to our town that we as residents can all be really proud of. Do we leave this report sitting on the table and ask for some more information and to come back to us, so as far as the costs around of the feasibility of staging something with the possible planting of exotics in there to protect the residents from wind and dust, which I know will be a problem, having been a former resident up in Bridge Hill. Right now, it's hard to, I think there's a steer coming from members about doing some staged approach, but I don't want us voting on that unless we've got a plan and a budget associated with that. So am I asking too much to say that I'm to go back to staff and to the residents too, because I think we've got an opportunity to work together on this to come with something we can all be proud of in the long term.
Can I jump in here? I guess from a staged approach, that's the consideration piece. I think we probably need a little bit of a steer on what a staged approach might look like. If it's a percentage, I mean, from a cost point of view, providing the cost, providing irrigation for 50% compared to 80% could be quite a different cost to consider, if that makes sense. So
right now, we're basically option one, clear fella. Yeah. We've got some figures there about associated with the costs of buying some trees at $150 each, but there's no plan associated with how they're going to be maintained, looked after, watered. I mean, I don't think the residents have put their hand up to volunteer to do that. I can't see a cost. I think there's too many gaps in this proposal for me to make a decision which I'm going to be able to take pride in.
If I could respond to that, Martin, it would be more that if you decide you want a staged approach, then we would do the detailed plans around it. We wouldn't typically do that work before a decision is made on that, especially given the recommendation is to cut the trees. If the decision of the board is to stage it, then we can go away and do that kind of development plan costings. But to David's point, I think what would be helpful is to understand what do you mean by staging? If it's front half now, second half next year, or is it 10 to 15 years, noting the advice I've had this morning that every 10 years at 8 trees left, another 1,000 spring up. So that's the decision I think that we need from the board to be able to bring that sort of detailed plan back.
And just to help clarify that, so there's been a bit of discussion about the slash. So the whole point of this, and I've said it several times in the early meetings, that the slash will be tipped up, gone, and then there's a price in there for that. So the stumps will remain because they need to remain possible to dig out along the rocks and between the rocks anyway. And the whole point is that the slash will be tipped up and available on site for mulch as well. So the site will be clear or clean, if the word is. It won't look like forestry, won't look like Gravers Hill. If you've been there to have a look, it won't look like that at all.
On that, given that we have some members that have indicated that they would be in favour of the clear felling, do we have someone that wants to move recommendation B and we can then vote on it?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Tracy and Jaden. So all those in favour of recommendation B supports the removal of all wild and conifers from the Half Moon Recreation Reserve. Say aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. That motion is lost. I then ask if somebody would like to move the recommendation 3, option 3 on page 35. That the Vincent Community Board agrees to the staging of the removal of the wilding conifers on the Half Mile Recreation Reserve. Martin would like to move that. Roger would like to second that. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Would you like that recorded?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, that motion is carried. I then ask, would you like an additional motion indicating what we would like staff to come back with?
Just to double check, sorry, staff with this on the spot. Option 3 as it stands in the few nights since I last read the report. That staged option was for a 10 to 15 year plan, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I think if that's what's been passed, that's a recommendation to council rather than that recommendation as it stands.
Okay, can we though move that recommendation is that it agrees to the staging, that there isn't anything with amendments because there isn't anything in there that specifies 10 years of the study.
I think it's in the body of the report.
But not in the recommendation. Can we have it with amendments?
You can resolve with amendments. So if you'd like to resolve the staged approach with a different time, with a specified time frame that you think is reasonable enough that the policy then doesn't need to be recommended to council, then you could do that.
I think that's the work, probably that could be part of the work, is to understand other options around that. Is it, what's the options for 5 years, what's the options for 7 years, what's the options for 10 years? Because I don't know forestry, I don't know the land like these guys know, but I think that's something that I don't know.
And I wonder whether it would be worthwhile having what a 5-year plan for a 50-50 looks like and what a 10-year plan would look like.
So typically your amendment would be subject to that advice coming back. So where I'm trying to get to in my own mind is what is my obligation to make sure that something is recommended to council and it should be appropriately. And in this case, the council has the policy. Yeah, I think a 10-year plan would require it to be recommended to council. And I think you can apply with 5-year probably. I guess I need to think about it, given what we know is the spread, and given this is one piece of land where we have, I won't call them wild in times, pines that are wild. A bird, if we put it that way, there is still other sites that need to be contemplated in the very near future. I already talked about the airport and Bird Hill, etc. So
yeah, and I would take Tim's point that it's not necessarily proactive, it is reactive to a situation that has already occurred, and that the policy doesn't say must all be down lines.
We're reviewing the recommendation then, I guess, if it's a staged approach, would we go away, irrigating the policy pretty closely, and determine whether we wanted to recommend it to council?
Okay, would we then be asking the director and the CEO to have staff bring us those cost notifications for a 5-year plan?
You've still got recommendations C there, which is, no, it does authorise the redevelopment in line with the proposed development plan for the reserve. So B would then read staged approach, and maybe C, you put your timeline in there over a 10-year period.
There is a development plan there, is that an achievable?
The budget would change,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think a 10-year staged plan is, we are making a recommendation to council to consider that.
Yes. That doesn't necessarily mean the trees are cleared over 10 years. They could be cleared quicker, but the development plan is 10 years, so the plantings and the redevelopment might be in the latter half.
Would it need to go to council after this meeting if it was asking staff to go back and present a 5-year 10-year plan? Or and then hold on to the next meeting?
I suppose my question is why would the board be asking staff to prepare a plan is inconsistent with council policy? And 10 years does not enable you to eradicate wild and pines on council owned land because of the nature of the spread.
is there a clause in the policy that specifies time?
But I don't think there is a here, but that's the kind of thing to take into account.
I may have a solution.
Yeah.
That delegations, if I can recall, I haven't looked it up, allow the board to send any matter to the council for determination. Why doesn't the board, if staff think this will work, send the simple question of whether a staged approach is in breach of the policy or not to council for, and I would say urgent determination, because the clock is ticking very loudly on that government funding. If council determines that it does breach that policy, then that might change things. But rather than getting tangled up now and whether you want to be saying 5 years or 10 years, which I don't think the report really gives you a lot of ground to work on there, the sole question here is whether it's in breach of the policy. I think for now, that if that's the focus for council, which I think can be put up for determination, then that's a narrower piece of work. If council comes back and goes, yep, we're fine with that, then you come back here, you do your plan, and off you go. If the council says you're not, then you don't have a choice, and you've still got a chance at the government funding, which will save the ratepayers of Vincent a great deal of money further down the track.
We specify a time in that determination, or we say between 3 to 5 or 7 years?
No, the point is the council would make the determination if we could make, depending on how soon staff can put a report out, if we were able to make a determination at the council's next meeting, I'd hate to give the CEO a heart attack.
No, I think staff could hustle to get the report to the next meeting, which is on the 8th of March. And then the BCB meeting after that is the 21st of March. So I just would note how close that gets to you to the end of the financial year in terms of whatever comes after that. But
overspends.
Well, it's a tremendous waste of Wellington's money. I think we're all.
Could we have a determination from council if all of the trees on Half Mile were removed within the next 10 years? Would council consider that a breach of policy or in line?
Yeah, words to that effect. And then everything else would sit on the table here to come back once that's determined.
So would that be seek the determination from council? You've got one, go on, you've read your opinion, man.
Council to determine whether a staged approach over 10 years is appropriate for removal of pines in Half Mile Wood.
Can I'm wondering if whether the 10 years is relevant, because what I'd hate to see is it come back here and we get a 5-year stage. It's whether a staged approach. The question is, if we've got wilding ponds in our land, does proactive mean we get rid of them now? Or do we delay?
Can we stage? Because it might be applicable to other sites.
Guarantee it will be. I think we need
The problem we've got, the whole issue around here is we're not dealing with wilding pines, we're dealing with a seed source.
That's an irrelevancy.
It isn't,
It's semantics.
it's not, it's totally relevant, because if we have wilding pines, this is the source of the seeds for wilding pines. We can control wilding pines by removing the seed source. We also have an obligation of removing wilding pines from our land. Right?
Yeah.
That's two things.
Sure, I've got your point, but
If a tree starts growing,
we have conifer plantations which we own, right? We have an obligation to manage the wilding pines produced by that seed source, by that potential seed source. You're doing it for us.
Just tweaks.
right, I like that, mate.
Ask council to determine, in light of the wilding pines policy, whether a staged approach is appropriate for the removal of pines upon the half-mile reserve. Let's be the chance.
Does it need to be a half-mile reserve or on council land?
So that is council land.
And we've got on council land, so that covers.
Yes, can do that.
Can we be, but
on council land, don't get rid of half-mile reserve.
Are the issues that we potentially face with public concerns about the removal of pine trees from council land, are those same issues going to be that we have here with this site? Those issues going to apply to Boot Hill or the airport, where we don't have a large recreational interest or residents who have the amenity value of having those trees?
But do at those locations.
Eh?
There are at those locations.
There is.
Significant amenity reserves.
And
In particular in relation to mountain bikers. And I think it is important, given that we are talking about drastically changing the visual aspects of Alexandra Basin, that we get this right. Recognising that there is a clock ticking on the money side of things, but that's not the only important factor in this conversation.
There's a definition of what a wilding pine is in the policy.
Yeah.
It's helpful.
And I think we recognise that these are seed sources, not necessarily wilding pines that we're talking about removing.
Would you like the definition read out? So,
No, I think we all know what the definition is. Yeah. And that whether or not these ones are caused by wilding or planting and then wilding on other locations, I think it's clear that they need to come out, but I think it's clear that we want a resolution that is not clear felling the entire site. So we have, can you please read the recommendation?
Okay, so I'll tell you where we are. So we've received the report. There was a motion to support the removal of buildings, which was lost. And now our new recommendation or new motion is ask council to determine, in light of the wilding pines policy, whether a staged approach is appropriate for the removal of pines on council land.
Does somebody like to?
Do you need to move a C to leave this line on the table after that determination or anything like that as well? Or does it just happen?
Nothing. Well, I guess this is what's coming out of this report. And then it'll come back. I don't think it's the line.
At least we should lay this report on the table, because otherwise the only paper you will get in March is the determination of council on policy.
If there's been a motion lost on this, so the trailers, this is now died.
Yeah.
Stacey.
Yeah, so you need to, I think.
What we're asking is for clarification from council, whether a staged approach is going to be in breach of their current policy.
Then once you've got that answer, this comes back.
Yes.
Either way.
And then there's also, and then possibly this Yeah, once we've got that, we can actually then possibly direct staff to come back with some more information from this board about how a staged approach would work in practice.
Yeah,
And
if
the
you're
budget
if you're
for
allowed to stage.
Yes, we're allowed to stage.
Because by then the Wellington money will be gone.
Eh?
Well,
Not necessarily. What are we talking about?
So what will come back on in March is the determination of the council, and you could revisit the paper that's currently in front of you because it was laid on the table. Any direction then to get further advice on what different stage options would look like would likely take you past the financial year and the money being able to be drawn upon. So I guess that decision today is likely to mean that the government money is not accessible.
Although I would be disappointed in that, given the budget lines that are in there now, the tables that indicate what the development plan would look like. My view is that a lot of that work has already been done. You know what it costs to do traffic management and the machine positioning. You know what the development plan looks like, probably acknowledging that the lawn can come out. How difficult would it be? I wouldn't envisage that being starting from scratch with what a staged approach would look like.
It wouldn't be starting from scratch. It would depend on what kind of staged approach you're looking at.
And haven't we in the past, when it comes down to government money, managed to communicate to Wellington that we are this far down this project, can you roll it over?
This money, I think it's a really different kettle of fish because it's not a pot of money that is for this project. It is a pot of money that is for the eradication of wilding pines in New Zealand. And in this case, a portion of it that is allocated by the Aboriginal Council.
And recognising that from the end of this, like, there is not no money, there is just significantly less money.
Just a clarification, David and Gordy, or David,
Yeah.
that this is the last year of the funding, or is next year the last?
Guidance was given on the last year of funding.
So next year's the last year of funding. However, they're fully committed, that next year's funding is fully committed to other activities.
Right.
For removing wildlands in our area.
And beyond that, there is an allocation to Otago as a whole, as opposed to.
It was $10 million at this stage set aside for across the country for wilding control, as opposed to the $100 million that we've had. And that, as we're informed, is not even enough to manage the sites that they're now cleared. So that's the regrowth, I guess, that's what for managing that. That's what that's targeted for. There'll be very few, if any, new sites to remove their seed source or conifers from. My understanding of this has been going on. So last year we had more funding available for this project. But that was all front loaded from the government, so it's reducing like that. So that's why we've only just got enough, if we get the log prices are right, to actually get through that this financial year. There could be a loss on that if the log prices that we'll get from the, we're estimated we'll get low, but I think at the moment they're okay. But when the decision is made on something, the log prices might be quite high. So it could be quite high. It's hard to know.
I guess the one final point I'd make is that it's unusual that the site is being discussed at this table because removal of wilding pines is typically an operational decision. So in other parts of the district, that is indeed what has occurred more recently on Sugarloaf, which the Cromwell Community Board was particularly happy with. I think there's some learnings we've taken through this whole experience actually that we'll need to bank going forward in terms of taking our community on the journey and some communication around that. Yeah.
So where are we at?
I think that's Wayne.
Okay. That the new one was ask council to determine, in light of the wilding pines policy, whether a staged approach is appropriate for removal of pines on council land, and then agrees to leave the remaining recommendations on the table until a determination from council is known.
Okay.
I wonder if we need to ask more specifically in that initial recommendation, ask council if a staged approach is a breach of the wilding pines policy, as opposed to in light of.
Okay. To the stage. Okay, fine.
The staged approach, complete removal was a breach of the law and kind policy. Look, well, and find legal counsel.
As the mover of the original motion, I will quite happy to move this amendment.
Ask council to determine whether a staged approach to the removal of fines is a breach of the law and financing.
Martin, the original mover, is happy, and Tony is happy as the original seconder.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carries. And then we will have that returns here.
Yes, that's the agrees to leave the remaining recommendations on the table until the determination for council.
Yeah. Can I have a, Jaden, would you like to move that? Seconded, Tony, thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'd just like to say thank you to staff for your considerable amount of effort on this. It has been going on for a very long time, and thank you to our members of the community who've also been invested in this for a considerable amount of time. And I do want to ensure that we get this right. So if it takes a bit longer and costs us a wee bit more, I think that is a satisfactory outcome. Right, moving on to item number 23.1.3, the balanced potted working group update.
We'll just keep going.
We'll just box on, and Chippy, like the balanced potted.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Christina.
Yeah, bit of a change of pace for you all.
Welcome.
And also, I have to say that Anna did an amazing job as well, kind of giving you an overview. So probably what I wanted to do, and you also promoted as well, was the open day, which I wanted to do to you all as well. And that we are having an open day. Volunteers will be there on Sunday. If you haven't been through the cottage, please go through. Obviously, we've got, if you can't make it on a Sunday, give that code a go and see what we've managed to achieve to date. Going forward, you would have seen the project plan in there and how we're trying to really achieve a sustainable future. I pulled some more stats. So far, since the halfway through November to about halfway through January, we've had about 60 people through. I think that's pretty good. Also, we've pulled donations of $81.40 as well. So it is working, and we are now getting data and we are now getting people through. So I think it's a massive achievement for our working group. Moving forward, our really big vision here is to really capitalise on everybody's knowledge of QR codes and overuse perhaps, and also capitalise and make the most of our COD or Central Otago NZ website to actually hold all these unique stories about this cottage, where the big view is someone could come along, access the cottage, have an experience where they go around the reserve and they click the QR code, which then takes you through to a website, which then gives you access to these stories. Now, these stories are hopefully going to be really interactive. We've got really great oral histories from the sisters who lived in the cottage. The son as well is giving or one of the sisters who lived there, Tione, is giving an oral history as well. So people can be on there with their headphones and actually listening, which would be a really neat, unique experience. Also go around the reserve and hear about Beryl and her pilots, if you're interested in that as well. So really providing a really interactive and making the most of this historic cottage, because obviously you've got to provide a sustainable future, right? And you've got to actually give people access to this to make it worthwhile for the investment that the ratepayers will turn in. So that's what that working group is trying to achieve. The other thing I wanted to say is that moving forward, I wanted to give everyone a really great update here and a really solid base of information for you all as new members as well. But moving forward, we'll probably do the updates via other methods, which will be either via the governance report or via our in the loop updates, so via the intranet. So any questions or queries?
Yes, just with the with technology,
yes,
is it possible, given that a lot of the a lot of the community, especially a younger community, does everything with these, that when they go there, there's a link that can take them to making a donation. That's an automatic.
Yeah, so another step I'd love to see sort of happen is that instead of our donations box, potentially, that you could actually, in the code on the door, that to get that information, there's another step there that you've actually got to pay for that. But that again, you've got to have a whole lot of technical structure underneath that, and also being able to receive that money, and our finance team being able to process it, and all that technology. So it's kind of like,
I knew there'd be more.
Yeah.
Than just just say yes to money.
Yeah, and I was like, this is a great idea. Like you. So it's a staged approach. And hey, look, if we get a commercial entity that could actually work alongside this and occupy part of the reserve, like a coffee cart, or open to all sorts of suggestions, then hey, that is really providing an income again to preserve this historic cottage. Because in the future, there is going to be mud brick maintenance. These cottages do not survive without money, essentially, and good maintenance. So yeah, it's sort of building that up.
Is there a low tick option, like tick your number when you donate bucks or something like that?
Yeah, we could look into that as well, absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you. Can I just have someone recommend the report with BBC? Tracy, thank you. Seconded, Di, thank you very much. All those in favour? Aye. Against, carried. Next up, we have Christina and Gareth again for item 23.1.4, Central Otago Riding for Disabled and Dunstan Equestrian Centre Development. Found on page 77.
Perfect. So again, I was very lucky to have the community come in and speak, because they give a really good sort of outline of where they're heading. I reflect on their comment of an arranged marriage, and I thought that was a really neat and light and upbeat way that they've approached this, and it has been a long journey to even get to this report to present to you. So just to reflect that this project was really born out of a resolution in 2019 by the Vincent Community Board then to say, hey, look, the site that you're on currently, which is the site of the golf course, really we need to get you shifted over to the Dunstan Equestrian Centre. Main thing here is you've got two lots of facilities which are really outdated and need a lot of investment, not only potentially from, so they came back to the Vincent Community Board, but also the external funding providers. As soon as you talk to external funding providers or us here staff and council, you start thinking and you want you to encourage multi-use, because as they said, their volunteer base is dwindling, and combining the two really makes sense. So that's where this arranged marriage or project was born out of. It's come on a long journey, and they outlined what they're trying to achieve in their project. And what we're really wanting today is the consideration of the board is to say, okay, that's their high level idea of their project of where they're wanting to head. Do you want them to go any further with this project or not? Because you can see through this that also that their plan is to come back to the Vincent Community Board for financial support as well, and tagging that alongside the fact that they've got public toilets on the site as well, which is part of the reserve management plan to have public toilets on the site. So just making you sure aware of that. And the second part of the recommendations of this is to also, it's a bit of an operational thing, just to extend their lease just a little bit longer. They've actually requested only a year, but we also want to take a bit of pressure off them. I think they'll achieve it, as they say in term 4, they're pretty determined. Yeah, just to give them a little bit more room, but also give them the right to give us two months notice. So any questions?
Craig, yeah, it's so good to I have strong memories of how we got to this point. So, and some of the animosities between these two groups, it's good to see it that's been dead and buried. The main call I got from listening to Mr. Harris earlier on today was the public toilets. And agreeing to, we won't have that information for that to possibly be included in this current long-term plan.
Well, you'll see in the steps which are at the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That there's an option for them to So a lot of their feasibility study, I should say as well, they've actually got a lot of that information. It's just providing that to you in a summarised form. So the reason why we're wanting to include that sort of feasibility look of it is to give you more indication of what the current uses are, what the future uses are. Is there any potential conflict of other facilities, etc.? Like looking at that sort of with that lens on it. Also looking around operational costs as well. What is their plan to fund it? So giving you more of that sort of information, but a lot of that they've already actually kind of got. So we're not talking about going out to an external provider and providing a feasibility study. That's not what we're wanting for them to spend their money on and to go through that process. So that's sort of one part of it, and also getting concept plans and updating costings. So I've promoted that potentially they could do that in one lot. And it could be achievable. It's going to be tight, but it could be achievable that we can then come back. You guys can then make the decisions as to whether to proceed further with this. Obviously, there's twofold. There is a permission to do this work on the land and the demolishing of the buildings, etc. And the other fold is the funding as well, whether to include that into the long-term plan or not. So this is sort of giving them an indication, yes, go to the next step and come back to us. Right. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah. So your company might get something to us for inclusion into this year's long-term plan, because otherwise it's going to put another delay into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'll go on for another 3 years. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has been to these toilets. I have.
They're
pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, rough, you're being polite. They're below bog standard.
Yeah. And same with the jockey room, so that's going to be temporarily sort of upgraded with a new roof so that the RDA can move in there. That's not a long-term solution. So I think it's more size and scale and how much funding is available, because it's not just CODC they're going for the funding for. You saw the list under the financial considerations. To pull a project like this together is massive for community groups. So this is really an indication of, are you wanting them to go forward to the next step?
I'm happy to move the recommendations as outlined on page 83.
I can see that.
Maddie, thank you, Jaden. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we page 110, item number 23.1.5, and we welcome you to the table to enlighten us. Thank you.
I thought we'd take the opportunity to update the community board on where we're at with plan change 19. Some of you were around when we started this, and I think there's a couple of new members that perhaps went around. So I'll just, the report gives a bit of an overview of where we come from and the way that council's approached it. This is probably the most significant change to the district plan that's been made since it became operative in 2008. It was originally drafted in 1998, and the residential chapter, just for context, hasn't been substantially reviewed since 1998. So there's been zonings and tweakings and excuse me, what have you along the way, but nothing as comprehensive as this. Council made a decision some time ago to approach the way that we identify our land, or the way that we provide for growth through the spatial planning process, committing significant funds through the Cromwell spatial plan and the development of the Vincent spatial plan, which was signed off in January of last year. So the basis for, certainly for Cromwell and Vincent wards, is the outcomes of those two spatial planning projects, which involved significant engagement with the community, several rounds, and a lot of resources gone into approaching it like that. It's comprehensive. It includes, we've adopted national planning standards, which is something that we're negotiating our way through in light of the RM reforms, is what's the best way to approach this. So coming out of the Resource Management Act reforms is some national planning standards and a number of other things. So we're negotiating our way forward. Spatial planning will be part of the future of the Resource Management Act regime.
So we're using and we've adopted the National Planning Standards format, terminologies, definitions and zone descriptions. For us, it's a big shift, and as was in the spatial plans, it's a big shift into medium density zoning. That's something that hasn't been contemplated in Central Otago before. We have allowed for smaller allotment sizes in our residential zone, but not with accompanying, I guess, standards about height and yards that really make those opportunities for that medium density living. We developed medium density guidelines as part of this process, and we're just about to release the heritage guidelines, which was also part of this, to ensure that we get a quality outcome in our urban environments. It has been complex, and we've been through the plan change was notified in July of last year. We received quite a lot of submissions, 177 submissions were received, and a number of further submissions were also received, I think 70 out of 30 as well. So there's been a lot of interest, which is good. It's always good to get that really good feedback. There's been, I guess, in terms of process, we were at now, the submissions are all in the process of starting to prepare recommendation reports for the hearings panel and planning for hearings starting at the end of the month. We've just got to negotiate with the hearings panel about their availability, but that's still the intention is to that last week in April seems to be the one that we're heading for, although that's yet to be confirmed. But so that's what we're thinking in terms of holding hearings for this process. One of the things that's really important to understand about plan change processes is preempting them or the outcomes of them in terms of zonings and what might happen. Because we propose it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it's going to be. Once it's been through the process and the submitters have the opportunity to provide us with feedback and evidence, whatever they want, and have their time to say what they would like us to do, we need to wait for that due process before we can kind of preempt any development that may or may not occur. It's certainly not a rubber stamp. And just because it's notified in a certain way, there's still, like any submission process for council, there's still the opportunity for those people to have their say, and for the hearings panel, who are all qualified commissioners, to make the decisions about what that looks like going forward. So that's just there. Trying to think what else might be taken out of the report. We have 2 years to process the plan change. So under the Resource Management Act, for this one, we would have to have, from the time of notification, there's 2 years, we would have to have a decision issued or decisions issued by July of 2024. So by getting to hearing in April, we're well ahead in terms of decisions. So we would like to think that we'll have decisions not certainly this year, but can't say exactly when. We can't preempt what may or may. We don't know. We don't know. At the moment, we don't know what additional work might be required coming out of the hearing process, or there's a lot of things, and then there's possibilities of appeals. So the certainty over the outcome is not really there until we've been through that process. It's really hard for us to provide that certainty, but we are trying to move through this process as fast as we possibly can. Happy to take any questions or clarify anything.
Thank you, and thank you for the comprehensive report. It's really clear, and I appreciate it. If there's anybody who has questions for Anne on this report. In that case, I'm happy to move that it be received. If someone's Tracy's there to second it, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Much appreciated. All right, thank you, Sam. Moving to page 114. Mr. Mayor, would you like to take us through the report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, a warm welcome to board members for the first meeting of what I'm sure is going to be an interesting and challenging year, and it's already proven to be so. Summer's a bit of a quieter time for the Mayor. It's spring and autumn are the real busy times, but there's been a few things going on. Onslow mightn't seem to be too relevant to Vincent, for some who don't think things through, but it's going to have a major impact in this ward if it does go ahead. So I was interested to read the opposition spokesperson saying that National are not going to be investing in it if it becomes government later in the year. I kind of think it was a bit interesting to do that when the feasibility study where it hasn't been finished yet. But anyway, it's probably in my mind moved that massive project from possibly to possibly not, which is a very fine line. Who knows? Last Sunday, and again a wee bit distant, I attended the Chinese New Year celebrations in Lawrence. You might wonder what that's got to do with the board, but I did have some conversations down there about the movie, some of you may recall, Only Cloud Knows, which was filmed in Clyde, released just before the pandemic hit. And it was very unusual in that it was filmed in Clyde, but Clyde actually played Clyde. It wasn't a location, it was Clyde. And we were expecting quite an impact on visitor numbers. And look, it's only scuttlebutt, but people were saying, yeah, you probably will see some interest in Chinese tourism now that the borders are reopened, but maybe not what we were hoping or anticipating, and what the right word would be there. I've made a number of service requests, happened to be in the Vincent ward for water leaks and overgrown areas of parks and stuff over the summer. I've been really impressed with the speed of the response. Really quite remarkable, and fantastic to see the Bob Turnbull Trust making such a big donation to the Ormoco hub. Well done. It's going to be a great day when that building's open for the community. And I do note with sadness the passing of former Alexandra Community Board member, Judy Elliott Hall, as she became known, Judy Hall, when she was on the board from 01 to 07. And then, you know, she was on so many community organisations in and around Alexandra and more broadly on the district, and victim support. Quite a bit to do with Blossy over the years, Martin, and other things. And
made my life complete misery for a number of months.
And on a personal note, Jude gave me my first job here in Central Otago when she was the manager of Radio Central, and I doubt very much I'd be sitting at this table if she hadn't done that and kind of put me on my feet. Since our last meeting, other things I've attended the launch of the Central Otago Resilience Trust. All Cromwell based, but the name is there, the Central Otago Resilience Trust, and it's designed to set up a fund so that when people are struck with sudden medical events and are needing money for those things that don't get fronted up for, those, you know, the petrol in the car to go to Dunedin or whatever it is, there's a fund that people can call on for assistance. I think that's really good. Attended neighbourhood support Christmas gathering, attended the farewell to Salvation Army community work at Best Carbine. I don't know how many times as mayor I've run Best and said, we've got a problem. You know, sometimes people ring me because they've seen a homeless person and are worried about them. Well, I then ring Bess. And so really appreciated her effort in the community. Attended the Dunstan High School Appreciation event, had a meeting with the full-on organiser, presented certificates to workers completing the Buckamessina Small Business Course, which is our Pacifica workers while they're here, an opportunity to get trained in various things. And this was a wonderful night where got to meet this person who had learned the skills to set up, going to set up a shop, going to sell cloth, and the biggest round of applause came to the bloke who's going to set up a carver brewery and booze it. Good luck. I met the new Central App reporter, Hunter, is with us today. Did a citizenship ceremony just before Christmas. Filmed a video for the completion of stage 1 of the Clyde wastewater scheme. Opened the Alexandra Community Pantry, which I think is a great thing. Attended Judy's funeral, as I said, attended the CoLab Business Breakfast. Had a meeting with the Otago Otago Goldfields Heritage Trust re the World Gold Panning Championships in 2026, which is going to be somewhere in inland Otago. Yet to be determined, but it's going to bring a huge amount of people, so that's very exciting. And yesterday I attended a meeting with Clyde Wine and Food Organiser alongside the chair, so that's what I've been up to. Have to answer any questions otherwise? That's me.
Thank you very much. Would you like to move your report?
Can't move your report.
You can't, you're not. I'll move your report.
Does that.
And Marty will second it.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Next up, we mine. I would like to give you all a verbal report of some of the highlights from my summer. First up, I went to my first meeting as an appointed member of the Tourism Advisory Board, which is an epic board, some really great names on there, including some other local places in our communities. So it's really exciting to be involved in that and see everybody needs. I attended a governance workshop with the fellow councillors and we completed what was a rather enlightening personality survey that you can do free online, and I'll send it around to you if anybody would like me to understand more about their personality. Feel free to send me your results and Martin, I already know what yours is. It was, yeah, really enlightening around the way people work and relate to each other and communicate. I have attended a couple of meetings around the Future for Local Government review. I'm on a panel along with some staff to help steer what council's submission to that process will be. It is a massive document that provides some incredible opportunities for local government going forward, which may or may not look like what we have now. Might look completely different. So I encourage you to hop online and have a look. Submissions close on the 28th of February. So if you've got some great ideas on what the future of local government could look like, certainly hop on and submit your thoughts. I, like Tim, have submitted quite a few service requests over the last couple of weeks, especially in relation to our roads and hot tar, as we reap the benefits of not producing tar locally anymore in New Zealand. But they have been really quickly responded to, and the feedback that I have had has been excellent. So thank you to everyone for that. I note recent events in Auckland, as well as our own Tornado Alley at Springvale over the previous couple of months, highlight the need for emergency preparedness, which is my favourite topic. And now would be an excellent time to check your emergency kits and plans. And there are a number of highlight events coming up in the next couple of weeks, including the Valence and Otters Open Day on Sunday, and then the slightly belated 125th anniversary of the Central Otago A&P show, where I will be looking to Member Patterson to be taking out the World Champion Award at the end. No pressure. Yeah, fingers crossed. Wonderful, that's all from me. I'm happy to move that my verbal report be received. Roger, thank you for seconding that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. And members' reports. Roger, would you like to?
Sorry, just one question.
Yes.
The stuff you done in the personality test, is there a little bit of merit on using some of that for Usher's event?
I think there is a really good option for that, and I think we should talk about it on our joint day that we all get together on. Yeah, yeah. Because it would be really good to have that addition. I think it's fascinating.
Right, I'm involved with the Vale Management and Recreation Reserve group, and a monthly job I have is watering the plants, which are a very large number. So in this present summer that we're having, it's an absolutely critical job for their survival. I attended a meeting of the Keep Alexandra Clyde Beautiful. I'm a representative from the PCB on KCB, and they reviewed their projects for the coming year. And I attended a strategic planning day for the Central Otago District Arts Trust. Thank you.
Very much, Roger. Right, anything you'd like to?
Since our last meeting, because I work out at the golf club, I've been lucky enough to go to work every day, which has been wonderful. It's been really, really busy until about 2 o'clock when it's just too hot. But just being involved with the camping grounds and motels, they've all been really, really full this year. It's been a busy time for the whole Vincent area, so that's fantastic. I was invited and attended the first meeting this year for the Valence Cottage, and it was great to meet the committee. I actually knew most of them. I'm heavily outnumbered, women to men, but we'll get around that, okay? So I'm looking forward to working with him. Just another wee community thing that was confirmed last night, just as manager of the rugby club. We had the local RSA come and see us about, they heard we had a big supply of wood, which we have, but don't tell anyone about it. They've got concerns this year about giving wood to their widows and elderly people. And so we've just set up 2 working days through the rugby club.
Nice.
And we'll be delivering 50 metres of split dry wood to anyone that wants it in the next couple of months. So that's just the week shout out.
You can now have a person beside you.
I'm sort of the boss, I tell people what to do. I won't be chainsaw and splitting.
Well, that's fisherman.
And that is just going to shout out to the rugby club that they're helping out the RSA, which is fantastic.
Thank you, Guy. Fine.
Like tonight, I attended Judy's funeral, and my comments would be that it's an end of an era and this parish has lost one of its original matriarchs. Like you guys, I've been fielding a number of service requests and again would like to pass on my compliments to the front desk team. That service works. And I encourage other members to, when they're dealing with public and people having the moans and groans about things, tell them how it works, because it does work. Yeah, we've been having a phenomenal summer. Generally speaking, town's looking pretty good. Pioneer Park is getting, obviously, the water's working. It's looking nice and green and getting haircuts, and gardens are looking really good, and the monument is looking spectacular. That's with my gardener's hat on. And that's me, nothing else.
Thank you, Nate.
Not too much to report, however, there has been a lot going on, as Tamer has mentioned, with regards to the 125th Finch Otago AMP show coming up, not this coming weekend, but the following. Just a reminder that it is a royal show for home industries. So if you want to get your home industry stuff in, all your arts and crafts, baking, etc., please make sure that you have it in on the Thursday, because judging, or the Friday morning, because judging happens on Friday. So it would be really fantastic if everyone would like to contribute.
Look at that.
Yeah. So, and then of course on Saturday is the main event, and it would be really great to see as many of you guys there. Yeah, it's great. The amount of hours that the committee have put into this is, despite the fact that we had everything in place for February last year and it's been put on place for a year, it is an incredible amount of work to put on an event like this. So yeah, just like to say thank you to the rest of the committee, and it would be great to see everybody there.
Tracy, Tony.
Haven't had invited, my two groups haven't met yet. The Alex Bly Business Group made a pre-Christmas couple of awards, one to Convan Awards and one to Lee Bowfield, so already recognised.
Oh, thank you. Jen.
So I met with Phil Murray from the Wilding Pines group a couple of weeks back, just to get a better idea on what their thinking was. Went to the Collab Business Breakfast last week. ACOS hasn't actually met yet for the year, so I'll attend that in 3 weeks' time, and haven't heard from the St Bathans group. I spoke with the ODT around their concerns for young people sniffing gas up at the airport and the health impacts of that, and all going to plan with pickup for kids. I'll go along to the Young Elected Members Network Zoom. It's me.
Thank you very much. I am happy to move that everybody's verbal reports be received. Tracy is happy to second it. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I've attend to something else.
Thank you. Move to item 23.1.9, the January 2023 governance report.
Just go through, make sure we're with everything.
On that, the VCB status updates.
Yeah, I think that's the. Yeah.
And then other November minutes from Keith Alexander at 5
Oh,
as appendix.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions on any of those status reports?
Just going to ask why the minutes for that there.
We have a bunch of organisations, I suppose, that submit their minutes to us. Often it's because the council gets the funding, or gets the funding, and so they're attached to this report when they come in for your information, and it's a public report.
Thank you. Everybody is happy with those. I have someone to move that we've seen it before. Peter Roger, seconded by. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And then we are getting on to date of the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 21st of March 2023. And move to a resolution to exclude the public for those reasons below. If somebody's happy, thank you, Jaden, to move that, and seconded. I'm happy to second it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you for your attendance. We appreciate you being here.